this anymore. Nobody writes things for people, especially uh, then actually follows through and pulls it off and sort of like demands of the timeline, like the fates, to say, oh, no, no, if I just hold steady, their schedules will align and it will come together. Like, it's very hard to hold that idea so purely in like the mind's eye that you actually, and the way Ozzy does it is sort of, it's very gentle. Like, it's not by force. He's a
No.
fascinating character this way. It's just a genuine belief and almost like, well, but of course it has to happen because it would be beautiful if it did. And I think we so quickly signed on to his imagination in a weird way. When you're making a film, kind of the craziest part about it that people don't really talk about. You hear a lot about stuff like method acting, for better or worse, but you don't really hear a lot about the airbending exercise that is sort of creating this sort of fourth world between like that our reality is real even as it's being filmed, and making that feel like a safe space to do this weird air bending ether based exercise of like, this is now our reality. And I think weirdly in delivering these analog scripts, demanding like of the timeline that it was going to arrive, and then we kind of co-signed. So before we had even begun the process of actually rehearsing or filming, we were already inside of like this very narrow, just our own little tiny world. Yeah.
There's so much arbitrariness in art. Some of these projects get very large and they get very far away from first principles. And the return to first principles, which is something you had said earlier too, it's like what happens when you're really talking to each other is like there's a third thing that happens. The scene's happening between people instead of with an X on a map box. And I think because you have to continue to make big projects to support a career, you can sort of invite the kind of work you want to do into your life. You end up doing one for them and one for you kind of thing. And so these small projects become very special, and you really crave a return to that.
I didn't have any expectations of this film other than an exercise to be a part of this film for Ozza, and the experience of getting to work with two women I really, 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 really wanted to work with. And to do it in this hidden place without any announcements, without any sort of, if we sign on by this time, then we can go to financiers. Like, none of that existed. It was like, this is what we have. And this is how I envision it, and like, let's just all get together, and it feels like we're making a home movie for us or whatever, like Natasha had mentioned before. And so to have that, to film it, to shoot it on film, for Netflix to then recognize it and recognize the integrity and say, here's a 35 millimeter print of the film, and we will be able to project it at special screenings, and you are going to have a cinematic release. And then it will also have this larger audience. I think it's not what we expected, but we also didn't have expectations because we were truly doing something that I think we all wanted and needed. The gift was the experience of that, and the fact that there is something else that can now be real and shared, and is being shared in a big way. I think is a really nice testament to, as an example of like how the industry could benefit from like a bit of a pivot or like a sprinkling in of projects like this.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm holding on to with the response that we've been lucky to have.